Good morning, first period AP US History. Today is Thursday, November 19th, and this is our last class session before Thanksgiving break. And my first goal is to make sure we finish the Bill of Rights. We got Amendment 1 through 5 last time. We'll finish the other ones this time. And then you have a little Bill of Rights quizzes to do. So when you went into Google Classroom, the instructions are to watch the Screencastify first, and that will be here. You can take the quizzes, and if you want to take it on your phone, fine. Some people find that it works better with the web link. You have an assigned class in there, so it may ask your name. Make sure you use your first and last name just so it makes it easier for me to get the grades out. So right now, you'll just need the piece of paper you were taking notes on before on the Bill of Rights. And the title was Bill of Rights, First 10 Amendments to the Constitution. And I'll just kind of go through the first 5 real quick here. We talked about the anti-federalist-federalist conflict. We talked about the First Amendment, the fact that it's freedom of expression, and that you're going to be expected to know that it's religion, speech, press, assembly, and petition, that those are the 5 rights included. Second Amendment is right to bear arms. Third Amendment, we called it the no quartering. That's all you need to know about it, is that no one is allowed to come in and take your home during peace or war. Fourth Amendment, we called unreasonable search and seizure. This is the one that calls for a warrant to search property. And then we ended on Fifth Amendment, and we called this one due process of law. We talked about the particular rights it protects, but I had you write due process next to it so we can kind of short memorize these. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on to Sixth. The Sixth Amendment, once you have been arrested and charged with a crime, it gives you certain guarantees. So Sixth Amendment guarantees the right to a speedy trial, an impartial jury, that you can hear witnesses against you, and that you are allowed an attorney. So we're going to call this one for shorthand, rights of a person on trial. So it's easier to memorize the Bill of Rights when you think about those last few as what happens if you're charged with a crime. The Fourth Amendment calls for proper search and seizure. The Fifth Amendment is due process. And then after you've been arrested with due process, you are put on trial. And trial is what the Sixth Amendment protects. So speedy trial, impartial jury, the right to confront or hear your witnesses against you, and then an attorney. Those are all rights protected in the Sixth Amendment. So far, those last 3 have kind of covered criminal proceedings. However, there are 2 types of court cases, I should say. There are criminal and there are civil. A criminal case, obviously someone commits crime, they steal, I don't know, like beef jerky from the market, they get caught, they are given due process, they're put on trial. But there is another type of law, and that's called civil law. Civil law is when you're suing for damages. Usually you're suing involving money. So all those judge shows you see, I mean, the ones that aren't like paternity cases, the ones you see on TV, those are civil cases. Someone is suing the house painter because they did their job wrong. That's civil crime. The Seventh Amendment covers the same procedures but for civil trials. So you have the right to a jury in a civil trial just like you do for a criminal trial. So there, on this amendment, I kind of defined the 2 types of law. Civil trials, 2 people are suing each other or 2 parties are suing each other. And criminal is the people of either, the state or the country are basically suing you for damage you've caused society. So in a criminal trial, you're accused of a crime. murder, theft, vandalism were the ones that I listed there. And it's the people of that state or jurisdiction that are suing you for doing that action. So those are the two types of trial law we're talking about here, civil and criminal. So the Fourth, Fifth, and Sixth Amendment kind of cover criminal. The Seventh Amendment makes those same requirements, but for civil law and civil trials. Okay, I'm going to move on to the Eighth Amendment. So the Eighth Amendment guarantees that you will not be given cruel or unusual punishment or charged excessive bail for your crime. So the first one, the cruel and unusual punishment, that is interpreted to mean we do not allow torture. We don't allow police to beat suspects into confessing. American law enforcement is not supposed to use torture. So that question that I posed there is a common one about capital punishment, about whether that violates the Eighth Amendment. So there's many states that allow capital punishment, and that means the death penalty for crimes. And for particularly bad crimes, many states will allow defendants to be subject to capital punishment. It takes years, there's a lot of legal proceedings involved, and many states have stopped using the death penalty. The excessive bail part. So if I am, let's say, again, I'm arrested for stealing beef jerky from the store, that's a minor theft crime. And usually they would arrest me and they would maybe charge me $1,000 bail. I don't know, that seems like a lot for beef jerky, but who knows? I have the right to say that's excessive for the crime I committed. So obviously, if someone is accused of a very serious crime like murder, their bail is very high because they want to keep that person. If I go down Avenue 7 and I'm going 65 and it's, the speed limit's 55, usually I would get a ticket for like $150. So those amounts are meant to deter crime at a certain level. Excessive bail comes in if they pull me over for going 65 and they want to, give me the death penalty. That would be excessive punishment. So that's where this one becomes controversial, is generally around that idea of capital punishment. Okay, that is the Eighth Amendment. Ninth Amendment. The Ninth and Tenth are a little bit weird, and the best way to understand them is giving you real world examples. So the Ninth Amendment basically states, and what I have here is not the precise text you're going to read later. All rights not stated in the Constitution are not forbidden by the Constitution and belong to the people. So here's what that means. Constitution is written in 1787. The Bill of Rights is added a little bit later. There is no way they could have anticipated things like driving cars or using the internet, but those are all things we can do. So the Ninth Amendment covers things that aren't explicitly stated here, but that we as a community, a state, a nation agree are legal to do. So if I want to drive a car, I have to go to the state of California, apply for a driver's license, take a test, pay a fee, and then I am licensed to drive that car. That's an example of something the state sets up for me to do. The Constitution doesn't really get involved. That's part of the 10th Amendment. But the Ninth Amendment protects things that I'm able to do if my community agrees I can do them. So for this one, driving a car, using the internet, traveling internationally would be another one. I just need a passport to do that. So states and individuals can do things that aren't listed in these 10 amendments if they follow the laws set up to do them. Okay, the 10th Amendment is similar, but applies more to states. It states that any power not granted to the federal government belongs to the states or people. So this one is kind of covered by the Ninth Amendment as well. the federal government does not give me my driver's license. The state does. State of California. When I pull out my ID, it says California at the top. So that's something that the federal government just said, hey, that's a 10th Amendment item. We'll leave it to states. We don't want to have to run the DMV and all of that good stuff. And where this one becomes controversial is where it runs into federal law. So, for example, we know there's states that have recently legalized marijuana that would conflict with some federal laws, but that would be something the 10th Amendment would allow them to do. And that's why you hear all those times, a lot of those cases move to the Supreme Court because that's controversial. So those are the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments. When you break them down the way we have, and you have one word associations with them, it makes them easier to memorize. I'm going to stop the Screencastify right here, and I will tell you to make sure that in the Google Classroom that you fill out the attendance form also. And I'm going to, because yesterday when the power went out in Firebaugh, a lot of my US kids couldn't access my live Zoom. So I'm going to record it and put it up. The first 5 amendments that I did with you live, I'm also going to put those back up. I'm going to redo that and put it up for you. Because it's just too difficult when people aren't able to get on the Zoom to get them the notes. So I'll make sure I do that. So just as a reminder, pausing right now, you have your Bill of Rights done. You have your 10 amendments.